This is me, I'm Michael, and today I'm showing you 5 visual design principles in UX. I'm an expert in games. I have a master in applied game studies, but I also am very interested in UX usability topics. I have certain certifications, and I also am very good in, or I try to be very good in marketing. And what I really like, okay. What I really like in game UX is that games, especially games, they need to have a good UX and usability in order to attract players. So there are some principles and laws, and in my last talk I showed you heuristics. So there's certain stuff which you can use, apply to your game so that it's more usable for the player. And one of those principles are those 5 visual design principles. We have scale, visual hierarchy, balance, contrast, and gestalt principles. And I will go through all of them and start with scale. So scale basically is when something is big, it's more likely to be noticed. You will recognize that some of those principles are, how can I say, common sense, but if you go through your game and you really try to apply, you will probably find one or another problem. You will then you resolve it for the players. In this example, you see a garage, and there are several information on the wall. And the most important information, of course, is the location of the floor where you park your car. Therefore, this information is very big, and all the other informations are small. You can also see it especially in menus. In this case, of course, those 2 buttons here on the bottom are the most important buttons for the progress in this game, and all the other icons, buttons, informations are rather small. Visual hierarchy, you see an excellent example here from Hollow Knight, where you can see that there is a big headline, then you see icons, and beside the icons you have also headlines. They're colored, and the text below is smaller than the headlines. This is very important to guide the players where they have to look at and do their choices. There also, I have another example which is not that good. Here you see there is some kind of wall of text, I would say, and it's still the developers made it clear that this is the headline by adding a break in the next section, and in this case the people who made this game, but there is no difference by the text, so the headline is the same as the names. Then you have balance. Balance is a little bit hard to describe. Many people say it's some kind of feeling, but there you have types of balance where you can make sure that it's pleasant for the brain of the players. Yeah? There is a good example of a radio balance, and on the right side, the other side, you see, for instance, that the text below is very displaced, and it's not very pleasant for the user to read. It doesn't affect the readability or something like that, but it's not really pleasant to use or to read. And here we have contrast, where you can use contrast to highlight important parts of your game. In this case, for instance, they're all Ford vehicles, but you easily see it which cars are important or special, expensive, especially expensive, because you see on top of the headline it's shiny gold, and you don't need to read how much it costs or any details. You immediately recognize that those two cars are the most important ones or the expensive ones. In kind of contrasts, there is also an important topic that you want to highlight important information by adding more contrast. And the problem here is that you can have usability issues and you can lose readability. For instance, here the game Toem, I love it, it's a really great game, but when you see the text here, edit, like, delete and share, there is a very low contrast to the background, and for many people it's hard to read and not very pleasant for the player. On the other side, photo, for instance, has a high contrast. You can easily read it, and this is well made. Yeah. But for Toem, it's a little bit special because they made this game in black and white, and I would recommend to do no games in black and white because you have a lot of issues with contrast. And the last ones are the Gestalt principles. It's from a psychologist back in the 20s. Those 6 laws are basically, don't fight the human nature, apply these rules to a design. So they're some kind of proven principle laws you can apply to your design. The first one is the law of figure and ground. So you should make clear what is the foreground and what is the background. Otherwise you have troubles to recognize these. For instance, those two pictures here with the ape and the lion, you see a tree, but you also see the animals, and you don't recognize which one is on the foreground and which one is on the background. Here on this side with the triangle, you don't know, is it a triangle on top on 3 of circles, or are these Pac-Mans eating the triangle? So it's very difficult to see the difference. And on the other side you see, for instance, a dog, where you don't have the same here, that you cannot really understand where is the background and the foreground. The next law is the law of proximity. This law is one of the most problems in games, that many games violate this law, and it shows that users perceive things that are closer together as a group. So you saw the first slide here, and you immediately, or your brain recognize, okay, this is a group, those two pillars are groups, and so on. And maybe some of you know Celia Hodent. She's a very yeah, famous, I wouldn't say famous, but she's the one person which is who is very into game UX, and she also published a lot of books about usability and UX. And she has a good example here from the book The Gamer's Brain. I can really recommend to read this book. That you see, this is a skill tree, and you see that normally the skills you can unlock from the right to the left, but those circles, especially here, the law of proximity says that those circles are a group somehow. Yeah. Here on the next slide you see, and this could irritate players that they not that they recognize it as this group rather than on the horizontal line. Yeah. You can easily solve this problem by putting a space between the rows. Then the brain will not recognize it as a column. Number 3, law of continuity. You see red dots and black dots, and even if you colored one line in red dots, the brain will automatically recognize it like this. So the color will not change the perception of those two lines. Law of similarity. You see on the first example you have dots and triangles, so users or players perceive them as one group. So the triangles, they're the same group, they're in one group, and the circles are in the one group. And players also tend to understand that this group, each group has the same, or each item had the same action or function, and the same is here by with colors. So you have a red dot, a black dot, but also a red triangle and a black triangle, and players also perceive them, each of them as one group, each part of them. Especially errors can have a lot of misinterpretation. The next law is law of common fate. So when the element tends to move in the same direction, we perceive them as a part of the same group. This is somehow similar to the last one. And here is also, you, for instance, in this example, that you, as a user for websites, in this case, you tend to know what this button do. Triangles here, a short caution. Triangles are very hard, or not very hard, very tricky to use, because players also have a lot of experience with websites, and you can interpret triangles as a play button or as back and forward navigation. And so you have to really make clear, if you use triangles in any system, what is the function of this triangle. And the last one is law of closure. Here, the psychologist found out that we people perceive those shapes as a complete image. So we understand, for instance, the IBM logo, that it's an I, a B, and a M, even if there are gaps in between. But our brain likes to have it closed instead of having breaks in the lines. Yeah, that's it. 5 visual design principles in UX. So, master quiz. What are the names of the 5 principles?
Scale.
Scale, yeah.
Hierarchy.
Contrast.
Contrast, yeah. Hierarchy, yeah. This one?
Balance.
Balance. And the last one? Bravo. So, questions?
The second example for law of proximity that you showed, I don't see it the way you do, because the law of proximity is only when there's no more information. So, as you showed at first, when there's only dots and just dots and not more, then yes, here it applies to 100%. In the other example, I'd say it doesn't, because you have additional information. You have the arrows that point you in a direction which group them in differently than just proximity.
Totally. I totally understand this. And you will not lose money because of this this design. Yeah? But in this case, it's a AAA production, and you tend to guess that they have experts in this area, so they should avoid such designs. Yes, the arrows, they show where they go, but if you have a short look on the screen, many people will recognize those as columns, and you can easily avoid this, and it doesn't break the game or something like that. Yeah? But it's more pleasant for the brain to use it. Yeah? So there is no no punishment for that. Yeah? But and also this is also very important in usability and UX. There are many things where people or players, they do not complain about this, because it is like it is. Yeah. So, but if you have if you know about this, you can avoid it easily. You don't need any special skills or technology for that. Yeah.
But you also can use these laws when you not accidentally but on purpose break them to push the player in a certain direction. So you give them a little dissonance in thinking to move the game in your direction, in the direction you want.
If the game needs this, of course you can do it. Yeah. I don't have an example for that, but
well, horror games would be one such example.
okay.
Where you use it to not to distract, but to push the player out of the game flow, to especially make it feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's what you want in a horror game.
You're absolutely right. This is the artistic part of doing games or other systems. And what we're here learning are the part which are proven laws and principles, and they're somehow smooth. And what you're talking about is the other part where you say you want to attract some areas or something you want to do. You want to let users do something, yeah, or have a moment, or you want to have them a special moment where they say, "Whoa, it's totally different," yeah. It's also, I would somehow compare it to ads. You can use a standard ad with a white woman smiling and there is a text, or you can do which is very different, and then you have the attention. For instance, posting an ad upside down, for instance. Yeah. You cannot read it, but you will recognize this ad because it's totally different than the others. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Maybe you know something about it, but for example, there is a very good game with a very nice UI design, UX. If you know, do such games usually integrate all of the laws or just some specific ones?
You can ignore the laws, but it will be not that pleasant to use for the players. You is it so? Do you mean that you don't want to use all of the laws, or?
Yeah, for example, there are just some that are the most popular ones and the most recognizable. So just to implement them at the first page.
I would totally recommend to, before you start coding or do anything, that you deep dive in usability and UX, and maybe you play some games and then you easily recognize, okay, they violate this law, or there is a dissonance of another principle, and then it's easier for you after that you code and you immediately design your game with all these principles and laws in your mind.
I think,
sorry, does it answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
I think, like you just said, this is not really a specific UX principle, but in the gaming area, you do have some. Let's say in certain genres of games, you have certain input controls that always behave like that, or you expect certain things in the UI to be in that position or something, and you generally have an easier time with new players if you adhere to those industry standards, let's say, or like game genre standards. So I think that is an additional thing that might not be UX per se, like a UX rule or so per se, but that still applies to gaming.
Yeah.
On top of those things.
I think it's totally matched to your question, that of course you can use, for instance, if you want to save, many games use a floppy disk, and you can also change it into a totally different icon which nobody knows, and the player has to find out where to save, for instance. Yeah? That's especially for new users, it's hard. But there is also a game called This Is Not a Game, and if you play it, you will easily recognize that you have certain perceptions or things in mind how things work, but in this game it's totally different. Yeah, and this game lives from violating all these standards. Yeah. Any other questions? If not, then we go for a beer.